Have you ever had this happen? You build a wrestler for months, they win matches, they win championships, they put on incredible performances, and yet their popularity barely moves. Meanwhile, another wrestler seems to get in popularity almost by accident. How? Is TEW just random? Why do some wrestlers seem impossible to get over? And what's the truth behind the idea of popularity caps that so many players talk about? Because according to the official TEW9 player handbook, popularity is one of the most important and most misunderstood systems in the entire game. Once you understand how it really works, you'll stop wondering why your pushes fail and start creating genuine stars. Welcome back to the TEW9 official handbook explained series. So far, we've explained match ratings, segment ratings, and in the last episode, momentum. Momentum tells us how hot a wrestler is right now. Popularity is something completely different. Think of momentum as today's newspaper's headlines. Popularity is your reputation. Momentum can rise and fall quickly. Popularity usually takes much longer to build. And understanding that difference is one of the biggest steps towards mastering TEW. What actually is popularity? According to the official handbook, popularity measures how well known and attractive a worker is to wrestling fans. Within a specific region, that last part is incredibly important. Popularity isn't global. A wrestler could be a household name in Japan, well known in the United States, fairly unknown across Europe, and almost invisible in Mexico. TEW tracks every region separately. That means when you look at a worker's profile, you're actually looking at multiple different reputations around the wrestling world. And immediately that explains something many new players find confusing. Signing a huge international star doesn't automatically mean they are popular everywhere. Where they're famous matters just as much as how famous they are. Popularity is everywhere. One of the biggest surprises when reading the handbook is just how many systems popularity connects to. Most people think popularity only affects crowd reactions, but it reaches much further than that. Popularity contributes towards how audience respond to workers. It influences segment ratings, it affects attendance, merchandise sales, broadcaster appeal, company growth, and depending on your product settings, it can become one of the biggest influences on your overall show performance. Popularity isn't just a number on a worker's profile, it's one of the foundations the rest of the game is built around. So, how do wrestlers gain popularity? This is where many players oversimplify the mechanic. It's easy to think, just keep winning matches. But the handbook describes a much bigger picture. Popularity changes happen after your shows, and they're influenced by multiple factors working together. The quality of the performance, how many people watched, the size of your company, current momentum, how the worker was booked, and the overall success of the event. That's why two wrestlers can have very similar matches, yet receive completely different popularity gains afterwards. Not because the game is random, because the circumstances surrounding those performers are different. A brilliant match in front of a few hundred fans simply doesn't have the same impact as a brilliant match broadcast to millions. Exposure matters, audience size matters, context matters, and TEW models all of that. The power of exposure. There's another mechanic that I think is incredibly realistic. Imagine you're running WWE. You sign a completely unknown rookie. On their very first night, they're standing in front of 15,000 fans, while millions more are watching around the world. Even if they don't win, even if they only appear briefly, more people now know who they are. The handbook reflects this idea. Appearing on bigger stages creates more opportunities for popularity growth because of the larger audiences you're performing in front of. Just being seen by more people can make a difference. It's one of those subtle mechanics that makes TEW feel surprisingly true to real wrestling. Can popularity go down? Absolutely. Popularity isn't permanent. Poor performances, less exposure, being booked in ways that don't connect with the audience, or simply disappearing from the major shows for long periods. All of these can reduce popularity over time. Building stars is difficult. Keeping them at the top can be just as challenging. Let's talk about popularity caps. If you spent any time on forums, Reddit, or Discord, you've probably seen someone say, "My wrestler has hit their popularity cap," or "they'll never get over 75." Here's where it's important to separate official information from community discussion. The TEW IX Handbook explains the factors that influence popularity growth, such as audience size, company size, regional exposure, and performance. In Adam's development comments, I've looked through the available developer comments in TEW9 and couldn't find Adam Ryland stating that workers have fixed hidden popularity gaps. Many experienced players feel like wrestlers can stall or at certain popularity levels, particularly in small companies. That's a common experience, but the handbook doesn't describe this as a hidden worker cap. Instead, it points towards the circumstances surrounding your company. If you're running a small regional promotion, your audience is naturally much smaller. Your television reach is smaller. Fewer people are seeing your wrestlers perform. So while your booking might be excellent, the opportunities for popularity growth are naturally more limited than they would be in a global company. That's a very different explanation from saying this wrestler has reached their maximum, and it's an important distinction. Why company size matters. This is one of my favorite parts of the entire system. Imagine two identical wrestlers, same talent, same performances, same booking. One wrestler in front of 300 people every month, the other appearing weekly on international television. Who do you expect to become famous? Exactly. The bigger your platform, the more opportunities your wrestlers have to increase their popularity. TEW rewards exposure, not just victories. Popularity versus momentum. Let's bring everything together. Momentum measures current form. Popularity measures fame. Momentum can change very quickly. Popularity usually changes more gradually. Momentum can help the conditions for popularity growth, but momentum isn't popularity. A rookie might become the hottest wrestler in your company overnight. That doesn't instantly make them one of the most famous wrestlers in the world. Just like real wrestling, recognition takes time. Popularity doesn't stay in one place. Another clever mechanic from the handbook is popularity spillover. As wrestlers become more successful in one region, some of that popularity can gradually spread into neighbouring regions. Think about how wrestling works in real life. Television, streaming, social media, word of mouth. As people hear more about a wrestler, recognition begins spreading beyond where they originally became famous. TEW models that too. It's a gradual process, but over time it can have a huge impact on how your company grows internationally. Everything we've covered so far came from the official handbook, unless I've clearly said otherwise. These next tips are practical advice based on how players approach the system. Don't expect one big win to create a superstar overnight. Consistency usually beats shortcuts. If you're running a smaller company, focus on growing your audience as well as your wrestlers. Remember that popularity is regional, so think about where you're running shows and where your broadcasts are reaching. And don't confuse momentum with long-term popularity. A wrestler can be incredibly hot right now without yet becoming a genuine star. So, what have we learnt today? Popularity measures how well known a wrestler is within each region. It influences almost every major system in TEW. It grows through successful performances, exposure, and audience reach. Company size and broadcasting matter because they determine how many people actually see your wrestlers. Popularity isn't the same thing as momentum, and while you'll often hear players talk about popularity caps, the official TEW handbook focuses on factors that drive popularity growth rather than describing hidden worker caps. Once you understand that, you stop thinking, why isn't this push working? And you start asking, am I giving this wrestler the platform they need to become a star? That's a completely different way of booking, and in TEW it can make all the difference. So in the next episode, popularity explains who fans know. Momentum explains who's hot right now. But there's another system working behind the scenes that can completely change how your shows are judged, even when everything else looks perfect. But we'll dive into that in episode 5. But thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you down the road.